Okay.
Oh, David Cassidy. Okay, yeah.
Hello there. We're live. Sorry for the late start. Good evening and welcome to Broadsheet on the Telly. My name is John Posterswine. You're very welcome. There's an election in the offing. It looks like Francis Fitzgerald may go, or this government may collapse this evening. I'm going to go. Our panel tonight include Johnny Keenan from Kilkenny, Luke Brennan in Dunleary, I think, Olga Cronin in Dublin, and Vanessa Foran in Dublin via Cork. But we're going to go straight to Olga. Olga, what's the latest with, I know there's a Fine Gael parliamentary party meeting starting now to decide Francis Fitzgerald's fate. What is the very latest? Olga? Hello?
I think that Fianna Fáil are going to put down their own motion of no confidence in Francis Fitzgerald. That's what's on the Twitter feed. But also, in parallel with that, Katie Hannon report in prime time, where she explained that basically, so you know the way with the O'Higgins Commission investigation, after the report came out, because of her reporting and Mick Clifford's reporting, it showed that there was this effort to discredit him, and that he was able to prove that what they wanted to prove was false. So that GSOC were told to investigate this, right? So Katie Hannon's report is that basically they were given the transcripts missing from the transcript. So the hour had been transcribed, but it hadn't been given to GSOC. So GSOC then had to go to the stenographer and they got it, and there was apparently no problem in getting it. As in, well, there was no problem. It was transcribed, but it wasn't given to GSOC, and it also apparently wasn't given to. I think she said it also wasn't. They didn't go to the Department of Justice either, apparently. So, but in that hour, that's what I think it was in the hour. Sorry, the missing hour is when O'Higgins, the judge, came back and after he had listened to Morris's tape and and said, "Oh yeah, so that was a load of rubbish," kind of thing. So like the allegation that the guards had made against McCabe. So the plot thickens. You know, they omitted the hour in the papers they gave to GSOC because GSOC was investigating because it was such a serious thing.
And why is this? You know, why is this a new strand? Why is this further problems for Francis?
Well, it just kind of stirs the pot in relation to the cover-up. I mean, we've been talking about this since August, right? So the guards, or at least one guard, Colin Mooney, went in and said, Morris McCabe was angry. He had a grudge. He wanted the DPP's directions overturned. We know this is completely nonsense because the DPP's directions were completely in his favour. Morris made this known. It was also alleged that this grudge was led by Morris himself at a meeting in Mullingar with two guards, Noel Cunningham, Sergeant Yvonne Martin, and because he showed the tape, he was able to prove it was incorrect. So the thing is that wasn't in the report, and I think everything we've seen since is just a cover up. It's just a cover up. They didn't think that this would see the day of light, I believe, and I think. Naively, but they didn't think it was going to see the light of day, and so like dragged out since then. And with GSOC, the reason that they didn't, obviously, well, I'm guessing that the reason that it wasn't there was that was damning, and that was part of just trying to contain the So why is it damaging for Frances Fitzgerald? Because she was the Justice Minister at the time.
Yeah.
Like the thing about this email, which we have to really hammer home, is that this email from May 15th, 2015, it alleges an argument between Morris McCabe's counsel and the Garda Commissioners' counsel, but Morris McCabe, we understand, says that this never happened, and we know that Leo Varadkar rang him the other night, Tuesday night, and said, and basically we understand that what Morris said to him was,
you've spoken to Morris, so can I say that?
Sorry?
You've spoken with Morris.
Yeah. So, but we talked to someone close to him.
Okay, Sorry,
so I took someone close to him. So basically, we understand that Morris laid out to Leo Varadkar, look, that never happened. What said in that email never happened, because Leo read it out to him, and we understand that Morris said to him that didn't happen. And so we understand that Leo was like, well, how do we get to the truth? You know, and so I think my understanding is that Morris said to him, the truth is in the transcripts. So remember, we said this last week, that they just need, like, it's going to be published. It needs to be published. But obviously, the thing is that because it's that the Charlton Tribunal is investigating it, and because there are laws around what you can say, I suppose, and everything, that's why everyone's been so careful and cautious. So that's why nobody's really reported about, kind of talked about the DPP's directions. But, you know, that was the real kind of the basis that they were saying for his grudge, which was such a blatant falsehood. Like once everyone saw the DPP's directions, that's when I guess the Gardaí were like, wow, we're in trouble now, you know. So that's where the containing kind of went into it. But
in terms of,
anyway,
sorry, yeah.
but sorry, you keep saying, asking me in terms of Francis Fitzgerald, but it is important because, but going back to that email said that there was that there was an argument because the senior counsel for the commissioner wanted to introduce this claim that that 2006 investigation into that dry humping claim wasn't investigated correctly. But what's important is that when she got that email, so that was May 15, 2015, that had been the subject of another GSOC investigation. If people, I know it's very complicated, but the Miss D claim spoke to a journalist called Paul Williams, and
actually, I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
So, we'll get back to the.
Yeah, but I don't want to leave that hanging in the air. But just that involved a whole GSOC thing. But
Yeah,
in the same month that she got that email, right? Basically, in the same month that she got that email, she also got a very, very lengthy report from GSOC that would have completely punctured the theory in that email.
Right. Yeah.
So she got a report saying there was absolutely nothing wrong with that investigation. So something should have triggered with her. Something should have triggered with her where she's with Francis Fitzgerald, because, you know, and I know, and the email that she produced, obviously, because of that last line in it, I mean, I'm guessing that's why it was produced, is because it was a means for her to say, what could I possibly have done? But I think we're talking about Morris McCabe. Everyone knows how much how badly treated he has been, and for her to, you know, kind of say, I don't remember, I don't, like, it's kind of, yeah.
I know, it's a horrible, the thought that she knew, she'd met him and Lorraine McCabe, and sympathised with them, had heard what they'd gone through, and yet was still aware of this strategy. Can I just open it up a little bit? Because there may be an election.
Can I just say one more thing? Just one more thing, sorry. So the timeline of that email anyway as well, right? It's kind of wishy-washy, and who knew what, and Charlie Flanagan knew before, and he was sitting next to Leo, and Leo said there's no such thing, and, you know, and all that stuff. But also to the Disclosures Tribunal this week. So how come it hadn't been flagged, you know, a year ago? But that's just wanted to say that, yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Well, I don't think Francis is going to be around much longer, Vanessa. Do you think there's an election in the offing as a result of this? Vanessa?
Oh, yeah, of course there is.
Okay.
Absolutely. But sure, Leo is dying for an election anyway.
Yeah.
You know, he's dying to go back.
We have to tell him that this election is for the whole country.
1 second, yeah.
Sorry.
Guys.
Yeah, sorry, are you talking to me or?
Am I?
Yeah. Sorry. The only thing is that this has always been a bad time of the year for an election. So remember Bertie, when he went to the polls around this time about 15, 20 years ago, they said they'd never call one in November again. But then again, nobody goes around knocking on doors anymore, really. It's all online and,
I don't know,
you know, posters. So I'd say Leo will be dying for an election. And, do you know, politics has changed dramatically in the last 2 weeks, you know. the polls 2 weeks ago showed a massive drive back to the main parties, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. And now we have a new leader in Sinn Féin. So now you split the main parties into three. And I suspect you'll have a new leader of Labour before there's another election. So, you know, it's wide open, folks, you know?
Yeah, on that point, I thought Mary Lou McDonald was pretty effective in the Dáil today.
She's a very good performer in the Dáil. So I don't know what the antagonism is, really. I mean, Sinn Féin aren't everybody's cup of tea, but there are some fantastic TDs amongst them, you know?
Well, Luke, have you been following this?
Yeah, well, I mean, to some extent, I think a relevant point in all this is, I mean, the economic climate has changed as well. You know, I think a lot of the independents did well out of the fact that are make good ground on the back of austerity and anti-austerity, and it's a more difficult thing to sell when you have the economy performing well. You know, I mean, all throughout the Eurozone, they've got very good numbers and it's looking very good. So I think that's a push back, you know, in terms of circumstance, back towards the main parties.
Yeah, but do you think an election do you think this will be a good time for election for Leo Varadkar and Fine Gael?
I think so. I think you know, I mean, you know, there's a lot of talk about Spin and how he's got on, but I mean, I think I'm reasonably sort of independent in my sort of appraisal. I've no particular liking for any of the politicians, so you know, sort of I see him as being a steady hand. He's, you know, sort of where he was an unknown, and he has a lot of things which sort of, you know, would have made him a surprising choice, you know, sort of from nothing. But now that he's actually got a bit of a track record there, I think he's an easier sell.
Even though he's probably going to have to fire Francis tonight, Johnny.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut across Vanessa, but I thought when she said that Leo wouldn't mind an election, I was thinking, well, he'd have to be told that it isn't just an election amongst his own party, it's amongst the country. So I don't think Leo or Fine Gael would look good in an election, which is great because they're shower liars. I don't know how far I have to develop on that. They're just false promises. I've been saying for a long while, we need a new government, a new way of thinking. Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil are not that. If we look at this current situation, and I just like to say fair play to Broadsheet and Olga, because all this was highlighted long time before in relation to, and of course, prime time get their name banded around the Oireachtas halls. But in actual fact, I said,
she's done amazing work.
Absolutely, absolutely, but there has been other stuff that has been overlooked within that those tribunals since Maurice McCabe came to the fore. It's been kind of swept underneath the carpet as much as possible. So it eventually had to come out. So it was only inevitable. Whereas Leo Varadkar today, when his minister was basically like a rabbit in the headlights, anytime she's been asked about this, and her main retort is that she set up the tribunal. But Leo Varadkar was giving thanks to the Yanks today when he should have been beside his fallen minister. So I've no respect for Leo Varadkar whatsoever. Bring on the election, but it's all in Fianna Fáil's ball. If they do what they usually do, sit on the fence and abstain next Wednesday, when Mary Lou and the Shinners are going to hopefully have a motion of no confidence in Fitzgerald.
Yeah, well, I think
we'll see how good Fianna Fáil are there. You know, because Fianna Fáil can actually take down the government next week. Oh yeah. So if they choose to.
Yeah, I think probably sooner than that. I mean,
what about the independents, folks? Has anyone heard? Has anyone sent out a search party or anything?
No, well, actually, it was independents that started all this, if you remember. Complete grandstanding on Sinn Féin and Mary Lou's behalf to actually bring this motion.
The Independent Alliance, I mean, it was independents, TDs who kept this going, and to be fair.
Just from the Fine Gael party, so Gavin Riley has just tweeted, Fine Gael parliamentary party was short and sweet. Leo outlined the party's wholesome support for Francis, widely applauded, and that's that. Heels being dug in.
Wonder, is that a Dublin thing? Because Leo is on dangerous territory in Fine Gael outside Dublin.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The voting percentage of the party, because just remember, if Leo goes to the polls, I know his numbers are up, but he can only get elected in one constituency. It's the other lads on the ticket, whatever, in Cork North Central or Clare or Kerry,
Vanessa and everyone, this is an election, and because Jim McCallaghan was very...
he was clear. He was clear.
Very clear this evening.
Well, hopefully it's clear next Wednesday.
I shouldn't think it would go on to next Wednesday. I mean, France will either go, or this government will either collapse.
Well,
they might have their motion down before Sinn Féin's as well.
But it's a supply.
Well, she might resign. She might offer to resign, and quite frankly, she'd be delighted because she's going off and joining Noreen. So
I think she will go. I can't see. Her wanting to
can I ask Olga or John? You might know this. Frances is a solicitor by profession, wasn't she? Or, am I wrong?
I don't know.
I don't think so, actually.
No,
I wonder. I'll check it out later.
She worked for Terry Crumb, in fact.
She's a PR. I got into my head she was a lawyer or a solicitor.
What's
PR? She needs to change her career.
I wouldn't go back to PR now. I just want a career now for. Leave him with a 6-figure pension.
Yeah.
Well, if there's an election in mid-January, Johnny, Luke, and Vanessa, would you canvass for anyone? Is there any particular party that you would? Are you even going to bother to vote?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I give everyone a number one. I give them all a number one.
Have they all delivered?
Well, I'm in Dublin South Central, so we're not tripping over ministers here like you are in Cork South Central, party leader.
Well, I would think that
the lot.
I don't believe the polls, and I haven't been able to believe the polls since before Brexit, Trump. I don't think that the support for Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael is as strong as.
I don't either. The one thing, though.
Yeah. I just think there's a shy Sinn Féin vote that will come out on the day. But sorry, Chris, go on.
Sorry, no, I don't. The sound is a bit slow in my ear. I think there's definite signal people are fed up of independence and smaller party numbers.
Who is? No. There's no indication of that. No. Okay, these polls.
Sorry, the polls 2 weeks ago.
I don't believe the polls.
The polls 2 weeks ago did suggest that there was a move towards the main parties and a drop off, and that would make sense, because it would make sense on the ground. But I do think now with a new leader in Sinn Féin, I think that they're worried. Leo is delighted with himself at the moment. I mean, he's the Twitter Taoiseach. His numbers are up. He's having a great old time. Lads, I'm in danger of falling in love with Leo at the moment. Like, I'm in serious trouble.
Is that your type,
here.
Vanessa?
Well, look at this way. In the last week, he's fallen out with Arlene. He's pissed her off. He's pissed off the Star, the Mail, and all of them over there, all the British tabloids. He's good around the house. She's the perfect man. I tell you, lads, I'm in danger.
Olga, can I ask you just on the on Morris and the phone call with Leo? The Independent said that this was a game changer, that that Morris had somehow saved Francis' job on.
Oh, the Indo, yeah.
Monday night.
Yeah, I was confused by that. But my understanding is that
I would have thought this situation was made worse because not only the email was an error.
Yeah, I think. Look, I think my understanding is that Morris told him that didn't happen. What actually happened is this, about the DPP's directions and the falsehood or whatever about it. He wanting it overturned, and then I think my understanding is that he did ask, "How can I get to the truth?" and Mars said the transcripts. So,
and we have
that is like, so it's up to Leo now, you know, like, well, I mean, I suppose obviously it's the tribunal, so it's the Judge Charlton, but the cat, like we said last week, the cat's out of the bag. We know how we know the basics of how they went after Mars, and I'm sure there's probably more. You know, I think we only know several aspects of how they probably try to discredit him. So, so I guess it's all to play for Leo in a way in how he deals with it. He either decides, okay, we have to be absolutely transparent about this, and we have to, you know, everything has to come out in Charlton. Everything has to come out, or
no, I just think
we're not going to trust them. Sorry.
I think all of this is superseded tonight. I mean, if they're sticking by Francis and Jim O'Callaghan and Fianna Fáil won't, it's gone. There will be an election. So Charlton and stuff will be all levels will be put on hold. I think
I think that'll motor away in the background.
Yeah, I don't think that's
going to notice.
Yeah, of course. So I mean,
yeah, but no, yeah, that is a really good point. That is a really good point. You mean their support for Francis Fitzgerald?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it could be because they've known
they're standing by Francis and Fianna Fáil. There's a confidence and supply agreement between Fáil and Fine Gael, and if that's removed or if that's affected, there is no government. You know, they're propping up this government.
Well, I think also that Fianna Fáil won't want Sinn Féin to gather any more pace with their own leadership elections.
Yeah, and there's also a feeling that, like, I mean, as I say, Mary Lou was highly effective today, and any more performances like that, and you'll see the Sinn Féin numbers go up. Although, again, I don't really believe these polls. Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, the one thing that I think about, particularly like Fianna Fáil, is that they've been waiting for you know, sort of things to sort of improve outside. I mean, it seemed that they were very happy to sort of wait until time had passed between when they had been blamed for the recession and whatever else. And it seems with green shoots now, you know, they're coming out of the woodwork. And I'd say, you know, I mean, like, it seems to me that like they always have a base and they can tap into it, you know, and they'll you know, they'll be a force in the elections as well, you know.
Yeah, Johnny.
Yeah, sorry to disagree with you, Luke, because I don't really know. Yeah, but no, I really just have no time for Fine Gael or Fianna Fáil. And Fianna Fáil, the electorate should never forget what Fianna Fáil did to this country. Yeah. Never. And if we forget in the short term, we'll get plastered in the long term.
Like, you're certainly not disagreeing with me there. You know, my point was just that people forget in short memories, and it's crazy, you know, because damage was done, and you know, sort of they'll be back again. You know, that's
we can't rely on the mainstream media when you have the presenter of the main program probably interviewing her brother next week about the most contentious issue of the day. I see a very okay, John. No, right, whatever. Like, okay. It's just too ingrained, and we've talked about how small the media is in this country, and the problem is why Fianna Fáil are still relevant is because no one on the mainstream is saying, listen, these guys put us in the shit, so let's not forget that. So Fianna Fáil will do what Fianna Fáil do. They will renege, they will sit on the fence, they will abstain next week. And the bigger problem, I suppose, is, or the bigger issue, if there is an election, why Sinn Féin have to feel that they need Fianna Fáil to be in that election? They're poles apart. They talk out. They don't agree on anything. So why are they more or less bedding down for an alternative government? Because that's not alternative. Sinn Féin are in every constituency in the country. That's the poll that's growing. We don't see that poll. They're the party on the rise, big time. And with the Mary Lou at the fore, she would garner an awful lot of female votes. There's a big swing to the left. We see that with all these movements and campaigns, and the independents can hold up a Sinn Féin government. I definitely believe that.
Yeah.
And with the likes of People for Profit and Solidarity, there definitely could be a left-centre government quite easily if people who vote Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil are true to themselves and say, let's do something different, lads. We actually need a change. And if people aren't prepared to think like that, they're cutting themselves. I know when to say that, but
I think you could always say that. Every election, you could say that if people just got out and sort of voted the right way. But it doesn't happen, you know.
No, it will, Luke. I think because the young people are engaged now, because the politics are affecting young people like never before. And once they get out and vote, that'll be the turn, I think. And they'll vote. They won't vote Fianna Fáil. They won't vote Fine Gael. They won't vote Labour.
Yeah,
they won't.
No,
they won't. Not unless their mummies and daddies are coming in behind their head or something. If they're left to their own devices, they won't. I guarantee they won't.
Vanessa, you feel that it's a Fianna Fáil Sinn Féin?
Yeah, but I've felt that the last time actually. I think Sinn Féin got their strategy wrong in a number of constituencies. I think they missed up maybe on 5 or 6 seats. They're going to be a lot more palatable now. Everyone says this was Jerry. It was Jerry. People wouldn't vote because of Jerry. I don't believe that. I think they were absolutely scared. The votes, the electorates were absolutely scared shitless by what the media portrayed them as, and particularly during the debates. I think even the day of the count, you could actually see, like even the way Matt Carty himself conducted himself on all the interviews on the day of the count, you could actually see people were thinking slightly different about Sinn Féin. Well, you know, the week after, then it was there was a lot of press about how badly the media had treated them, and that was an impression I got. But I do think Sinn Féin and Fianna Fáil probably could do a good government. The only form of good government. The only thing I think that there'll be a struggle is, you know, you're looking at some serious brain power in Sinn Féin at the moment, and even in Micheál Martin and is it Michael McGrath's own constituency. I turn to Patrick, he's a young man, you know, he's 30 maybe, and he could well top the poll there, and he'd be taking out Simon Coveney, Micheál Martin, and Michael McGrath.
Yeah.
So that doesn't look good for the big main parties. Like Johnny, if you look at the Sinn Féin sort of, let's just say front bench, they're all under 50. Pretty much. Yeah. So you go you're talking about a lady there this evening, Frances Fitzgerald. I've just Googled her there. She's 67. Now, that's not meant to be ageist, but I'm telling you, look at the potential you have by actually Mary Lou or Padder, Tobin or Pierce, giving them an ear. The electorate know this.
Yeah, but
you know, give them an ear and see what happens next.
Vanessa, you've got in Fine Gael, this like aging boy band, you know, Harris.
Oh God, you know, it has been hilarious the last 2 or 3 weeks though with Leo, between his socks, and now he's after pissing them all off, and now Simon is.
He's a caricature.
Now Simon is swinging his veto around like it's a, you know.
August, is there any more?
You know.
On the Fine Gael parliamentary meeting, or any news on Twitter?
So I'm just trying to put it into some of the. We don't have any Irish papers yet, but just put in the English papers. I think another tweet from Gavin Riley. Taoiseach says Mary Lou McDonald herself misled the Dáil by stating that Gardaí had been copied into that email.
Right. Okay.
I should look at that. Fianna Fáil is having a meeting of its front benchers tomorrow at 9:30.
So
all right, I'll have to start making inquiries tomorrow. I need to be careful because I have 2 friends. One is on the ticket, and one is hoping to get on the ticket. So yeah.
What constituency would that be?
Just another tweet from Jennifer Bray. She works in the Daily Mail. Leo Varadkar at the emergency PP summarised: Sinn Féin and Fianna Fáil want a head. We aren't giving them one. I'm standing up for standards in politics.
Well, that's nice to hear. That's lovely.
Yeah. So just to go back to that phone call. So I think that's what you were saying earlier, John. Like, yeah, it's interesting. So he's been told what happened. He knows what happened. Mick Wallace said it in the Dáil. And it's since been reported, okay, about the DPP's direction. So Leo knows. So and the people now know that Leo knows, and it's going to come out. You know, everyone will report it. Everyone will be talking about it. So, is he now saying that, you know, unless he says, okay, Francis Fitzgerald had nothing to do with it, I guess that's what he's saying.
Yeah, it's
do you know what will be interesting, everyone there? Do you know what will be interesting is to see how, you know, Kate and Regina and all that react to Frances staying in her big ministry.
Well, what I'm saying is that she can't. I mean, or at least it's over now, because if they're going to circle the wagons and Fianna Fáil are going to pull out, I mean, who'll
get what? It'll be the next story for next week.
But it does go to show you that politics is such a dirty game. They will throw anyone underneath the wagon.
It is patronage. At that level, it's all patronage.
Yeah, but it's unbelievable for the citizens of this country to look at this time after time after time. And it's just bullshit. Nice. You cannot take a call from Maurice McCabe and tell him how great he is, you know, and then do so. I'm not saying he is, but he either believes Maurice McCabe or he doesn't. And he's already said he's a man of integrity. So what way is he going to tackle this? You know, he has someone. Viker has to make a serious decision in the next day or two, or it'll be made for him, and then we'll see.
Well, and people will know because the truth will come out, and he's been told the truth.
Yeah, who said it a couple of weeks ago that this would bring down the government?
I think that was you, John.
To silver chat.
Just another tweet. I feel like your man Shane Beattie on the Twitter thing. Daniel McConnell from the Examiner is tweeting, Francis Fitzgerald looking far happier this evening compared to earlier. And he has another Fine Gael minister has told him, doesn't say who, Dáil will be dissolved on Tuesday or not at all, disputing mid-January suggestions. So
wow.
So
genuinely, it's escalated, isn't it? It's going to take so. And
why? Because Alan Kelly asked questions about something that we all were kind of wondering about for the last, you know, well.
The interesting question, actually, who will have a new leader first, Sinn Féin or Labour?
I don't think Labour will exist.
I think Labour will.
They're on the way out.
You're not a fan of Alan, Vanessa, are you?
No, but I having said that, well, I wouldn't vote. The only Labour vote I've ever cast was for Mary Upton and her late brother Pat. I think Alan is he's making them relevant as a party.
Alan Kelly.
Now, whether he stands as an independent or for Labour the next time, I think he will be the next leader of Labour, and I don't think Howlin is going to be taking them into the election.
Really? Okay. Well, my thought is that like Alan Kelly is probably responsible for all this in a way. Olga.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, definitely. Yeah.
He knew about this email. Obviously, he had a copy of the email. In fact, maybe because they were in government at the time, that this was a Labour from a Labour source saying, "Be careful here," like a barrister or something like that. You know. Alan Kelly got a hold of that copy of that email anyway, and it probably has more stuff.
Well, also it's a very big department, so there's a lot of opportunity to develop relationships at senior level in there.
Yeah.
It's a huge
and he also, I suppose it should be said, I know others have said it, that he's on the Public Accounts Committee, and obviously he was heavily involved in the you know, the Girl College stuff in Templemore. So, you know, John Barrett, the civilian, you know, a whistleblower effectively, really, as well, a civilian guard. So I think there probably would have been a lot of contacts, or, you know, he would have learned a lot, I'm sure, from people like that.
Yeah.
So,
the Examiner,
oh, was it there? Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, just so extraordinary, really. There's a fantastic cover on the Examiner.
Wow, the front page is brilliant. Yeah. Sorry?
It's incredible front cover. Just on going back over this story, I reread Michael Clifford's book over the weekend, and it's a great read. Maurice McCabe is an incredibly heroic kind of figure, but I think the problem was that they tried to cover up for Guard's mistake, or Guard's lies, really, Guard's evasion of a couple of guards, because they probably couldn't believe it themselves. Is that right, Olga? Do you think that? We were talking about that earlier, wasn't it? That
maybe, but
like they'd taken the guards' words about the grudge issue, and presumably up to the point where they heard the tape, where nothing of the sort was said, you know.
But see, and we said this is what, remember we were talking about this in August, that it possibly then was the cover up. That's what their downfall was, that once they knew that they partook in trying to contain it, and like, even everything with this email was a bit like, obviously it's really important, but part of me was going, yeah, but just remember, Leo Varadkar even said it in the Dáil that Maurice McCabe told him it didn't happen. And like, like, so it's still being kind of bandied around. And remember, that phone call was like a half an hour before Frances Fitzgerald got up in the Dáil. And okay, she did say there had been a phone call between the Taoiseach and Sergeant McCabe, but and he has some issues. But she never mentioned that. He said it wasn't true. It didn't. It was false. It didn't happen.
Well, I wonder for an election campaign if changing the whole Garda Síochána would be a platform for one of the parties, perhaps the Social Democrats.
Do you know what else?
Changing change.
Maybe that would be a Sinn Féin policy. I mean, yes, and I has been quite successful.
Yeah. But John, I remember you saying this like, months ago. And I don't think anyone can disagree.
Sorry, Vanessa, you were saying?
Yeah, I wonder will the special communications unit be disbanded or suspended while there's an election campaign going on, because they're using taxpayers' money to.
I wonder if I imagine Micheál Martin will continue with that strategic unit, won't he, if he gets in?
Well, there might be a new leader there as well.
Oh, you've no time for Martin at all, have you, Vanessa?
No.
Who do you think should lead Fianna Fáil?
I can't say.
Well, you can't say, or you can't say?
Can you leave it with me for a week and I'll tell you next week?
Luke, any thoughts on the leadership of
Fianna Fáil? Well, again, like I said, I think he seems to be like a steady hand. He seems to been doing a very good job of keeping Fianna Fáil at low profile, and that seems to be in their game, and they've successfully done that. And like I said, I think if there was an election next month, I think they'd do better than the last one. And you say the same, like a year on, they'll do better again,
Yeah. Olga?
Fianna Fáil?
Yeah.
I don't know. Who do I think would be the next leader?
Well, do you think, I can't see Micheál Martin being replaced, but Vanessa?
I can't either, actually.
But you won't tell me about
See, they're so bland and beige. There's no one exciting there at the front table at all. That somebody would immediately pop out at you. Do you know?
No, I can't think of anyone. Sorry.
None of us can think of someone. I have someone in my mind, but I don't want to put the name out there in case.
Okay. Maybe a female leader?
In Fianna Fáil?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you're thinking?
I am, but then at the same time, I don't think Mary Lou is going to be leader of Sinn Féin either.
Oh,
do you not? No.
No.
Pierce Doherty?
No. Matt
He's
Carty.
moved himself out, hasn't he?
Matt Carty.
Oh, Matt Carty. Okay.
Matt Carty, okay.
Matt Carty will bring a national collective together. He's in Europe and he's liked, he's affable, he's border. He's right there on the border. And
Okay. Okay, Matt Carty. Okay, we'll hold you to that. I needed to at this stage, just before it gets too late, I wanted to talk about the site for a second. We had a few weeks on the site. Technically, we're changing the apps, and we've got a tech guy in, and he said that the site was in such a state. There's millions of files and stuff that, you know. So it's over the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Looks like a consultancy's office in Limerick.
It's a mess anyway, and but slowly getting there, and that's why people can't sleep on the app, and it's just been a horrible, and it's coming to an end, and we're going to improve the speed and all the technical stuff, but. And as for the show, the Broadsheet on the Telly, we're thinking of moving to another format now. Road Tide mentioned something this afternoon in the comments, so I had a look at this different platform. So maybe we're going to try that out next week for the.
Thanks, Road Tide.
John, I'd actually seen that comment, and I've looked into one or two of those just with work we were doing using some similar things, and I do think there are sort of jumps up in sort of production quality available quite simply, and I think it's well worth examining. Just in terms of the overall feel and look of how the thing sort of is for the end user, like that can sort of really be lifted, Yeah,
that's great. So maybe next week we're gonna have it. But really, what I wanted to say is that we've also had loads of turmoil in the comments section, and there's been, people upset at things that people have said, and particularly Spaghetti Hoop. I wanted to apologise to her and to say sorry for a comment that was leveled at them by somebody. Anyway, I just wanted to apologise and just also say that the policy is, if you have a problem, please write to us, and we'll sort out. We'll try and sort out the best we can. We're sort of we run a very small kind of staffed ship, so we try and sort of we react to complaints as best we can. In this particular case, I thought that the person who was commenting, we didn't want to expel him from the site because we thought he had nowhere else to go, and we thought the site was giving him some sort of kind of outlet. And I personally felt sorry for him, but he abused Bertie Blenkinsop and Spaghetti Hoop, and so he's no longer on the site. And first person we've kind of kicked off. I simply want to say apologies to everybody for the
who's gone from the site.
Sorry, Johnny.
Who's gone? Who did you have to take off the site?
It's really key.
I didn't want to really go over it, like the names and stuff like that. I just want to simply apologise to the people that had been upset, and but you know who it is. You know, Johnny, don't you?
I don't. I could guess, but I don't want to guess wrong. But
Yeah,
I thought like if someone was going to be taken off, but like.
Well, it wasn't taken off. It was just like he had gotten.
I think people have a responsibility, John, for what they text, for what they tweet. If you look at the latest scandal, I don't want to jump off to Al Porter, but
Is that the guy that was always drunk?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that I stopped figuring out what their modus operandi is, because it's hard to. It's not good for the head as well. So I can understand how Spaghetti Hoop would get offended, because some people are let fly and they don't have no consideration. So maybe a kind of an amnesty of be a little bit more to the point, as opposed to or tackling the point, the ball, not the man, kind of a thing. Maybe that might be something for some of the contributors to take heed for, than just bringing one guy to a side.
It is is an open forum at the same time. You can't expect
Can
everybody to toe
you expect
line.
respect? Can you expect respect? No.
Yeah,
It's the internet.
No, you said that before. I don't buy that. Sorry.
There's an interesting point in this that you know, I mean, like effectively, I mean, Broadsheet is you know, it's a news source, or whatever, but it's also a community, you know. And you know, it's a society, you know. And there's an interesting thing here about, you know, how we sort of treat people, and we're, you know, we have to be considerate, we have to, you know, sort of, but there's a sort of the consideration is a two-way thing, you know, and there has to be sort of, you know, from both perspectives, we have to sort of like work out what's best for the community, what's best for the people, and it's complicated. But I think like, I mean, you know, I'm here talking now, but I mean, I've been sort of sending stuff into Broadsheet. I don't know, if maybe for 4 or 5 years, you know, just photos and different things like that. And like, I've enjoyed it so much as a sort of resource and sort of as a platform. I've never really got involved in the comments because it seems like a bit of a Wild West. And I just thought, well, you know, sort of life's simpler if I sort of stayed away from it. But I do think, you know, sort of Broadsheet should be sort of lauded for that, for providing this community where things are talked about, you know, but sort of remembering that, you know, I suppose the clearer it is of what Broadsheet is trying to do, because I think there's huge value in providing that platform, but the clearer that's made, then the tenets of that can sort of are something that have to be adhered to, and they're sort of set certain standards, you know, that sort of makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think Luke has it completely wrapped up there. You know, it is the internet. Yeah, that's what it is, and you know, it's not.
It's not a free for all, Vanessa. It's not. It's the internet, but it's not a free for all.
Luke said it's a community. Free for all. It's not a court of law where people are, you know, swearing affidavits and notices of motions and presenting their ID. It's the internet.
Yeah. Is it a community-based website, or is it the internet a free-for-all, John?
Well, Johnny,
anything on the web is.
I'm not talking about anything on the internet, you know.
If you're talking about a community-based website, then it's a member website where people register to become members.
No, I don't want to go down the technical route. I'm just saying in relation to the ethos of the website. What do you want in relation to the contributors? Do you want them to show respect and informative discussion? Or do they want to be just thrown in their oar every now and again and then head off?
Johnny, I mean, the thing is,
you can't limit it.
Well, we've done this, what, 7 years, 7.5 years or so?
Nearly 8, yeah.
And
we missed the birthday party, do you remember?
We observe we observe light touch moderation. I mean, we don't accept the swearing. And the reason we changed the swear words is because, you know, if you're moderating it all day, it's like reading like a Mammoth play followed by Tarantino. It's just like F's and just a wall, a text of.
So would you limit that in Hollywood? Actually, John brought a good point there about you know, provocative movies like Tarantino. Johnny, would you say no, shouldn't do that because it's not real life?
No, I think you're going off point there on purpose, Vanessa. That's not that's not at all I said. So I'm not even going to engage with that. What I'm saying is 7.5 years, and I'm only new here, so people would say I've no right to say it. But if I'm going to be getting my information, and I'm very happy to get my information from Broadsheet, since I came on about a year before I was actually on it first. It was a go-to website for good information. But I could never get my head around the threads because it was just as Luke said, it's the Wild West. So you engage where you can, if not. But after 7.5 to 8 years or 7.5 years, you say you have to dismiss someone now.
No. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was the first time, but it wasn't because it was 8.5 years. Hello, can I just
Hi, Mark.
I introduce Mark Dempsey. Mark is the man behind We Are 900,000, which is the amount of people who rent in Ireland, in the Republic of Ireland, nearly 1 in 5 in Ireland. And Mark has set up it's a website, but it's more than that, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah, it's well, at the moment it's just really a sign up to really gauge whether there's interest or traction around there for the idea. So it's a sign up at the moment, but the idea is really to develop a broader kind of platform around renting and rental rights in the country. So it's early stage at the moment, but like I have a kind of a longer term, plan for us. It's really to galvanize and network, engage, as much as possible, the 900,000 people that rent in the country around the issue of long-term rental, sustainable, affordable, proper regulation, like a European, try to move policy in the direction of a European model over the longer term. So I just came up with the idea to do it digitally. And
that's a lot of voters.
It's a constituency. It's a huge constituency, which I think, in terms of policy, it's been, from consecutive administrations has been very slow to adapt or adopt policy that, is fair for all parties within the rental market, so.
Have they done surveys? Do renters vote less than homeowners? I'm sure that is the case.
I've done very little because my background, I'm a web designer. So it was just an issue that I kind of got really angry about one day. So I decided instead of, getting angry about it, I would just, use my skills to try to do something productive. So I'm not, to be honest with you, around the figure, the only thing I've got are the usual headline figures that are available from the CSO and, the likes of Threshold and Peter McVerry and, all those sorts of organizations. But to delve into the polling data, I wouldn't be particularly au fait with it. But what I do know is that that's a pretty substantial constituency that, on this issue has been pretty much ignored in terms of not only policy, but also in terms of the last budget, for example, renters got nothing. Yeah. So the idea around it is really to organize and, change policy to be fair for people who rent in the country, which is a sizable amount of people. I mean, it's, as you said, it's 1 in 5. And that is set to increase over the next, how many years. Renting is here to stay. I mean, it's always been here, but, as a culture, we've always had something I remember reading The Ascent of Money a couple of years ago when 76% of Irish people own their home, or 86% of Irish people own their own home. I mean, we're not really looking figures like that going into the future. So a European style rental market is not a lot to ask, I don't think.
Okay, sorry, John, can I just say, firstly, thanks, Mark. I think well done. I think you're doing a great thing there, and I mean, someone asked earlier whether, sort of reforming the Gardaí would be worth, would get people out. I think, this is the issue that would get people out. I mean, I rent myself, but the thing is, it affects not only everyone, but everyone knows 5 other people. Everyone has a brother, sister, sort of friend at work, that once or twice a year end up in what's a difficult situation, and there's very few things, in modern life that are as challenging as not being able to find the right place or being forced into the wrong place, and so it's just fantastic to see someone actually sort of doing something about it.
Who would be the renters' party? We know who the landlords' party are.
I suppose that's one of the other things about the project. That's the reason I called it We Are 900,000, is because the 900,000 people in the country that rent are pretty much across the spectrum. They go from people on the HAP scheme all the way to professionals that work in high paying jobs. You know, it doesn't. The rental market does not discriminate. And that's the reason I called it 900,000, because I didn't want it to be kind of associated with a certain, place on the spectrum of, certain place on the political spectrum, because it is an issue that affects everyone. You know, it affects, there's 500,000, for example, there's 450,000 people in their 20s and 30s living with their parents, so it affects, 450,000 families, aside from the 900,000 people that are renting. Yeah. So when you dig into the figures, it's huge.
What's your situation?
And well, I rent.
Yeah.
I'm lucky. I have a super sound landlord and landlady who I live in a house of like 5 people. 5 of us are professionals. And they're pardon?
It's a house share, is it?
It's a house share, yeah, which is, living with 5 people isn't ideal. No. But it's a nice house. The people I live with are amazing. My landlord and landlady are amazing. So I consider myself quite lucky. But people who are renting and have a nice place to live shouldn't be, counting their blessings because of a situation outside of, their own. Because for other people, it's not like that. For like the well, I don't know the figures, but for a lot of people, it isn't like that at all. Yeah. So.
And there's no. It's funny. There is no tenant body then. Effectively, really, is there?
Well, there's a few organisations like RTB, Threshold, and then the homelessness charities. I mean, they've been screaming for sensible policy for years. And a lot of them have said like that the crisis and the situation we're in right now was totally and absolutely predictable.
Yeah.
And I suppose the long-term goal for this is for the political establishment, whatever colour or shape it ends up being going forward in the future, know that, sorry, the light's gone out.
They cut you off. Your landlord says, no, it's after 11 at bedtime. Do you remember in Rough Minds years ago, guys, and the button on the wall?
Would you not put 50p in the meter?
Sorry, I just interrupted the hall.
We are not.
Nice.
Yeah, with no electricity.
No, with we. Bring us the.
Yeah.
Is this? Are your housemates laughing at you?
No,
Wisdom.
So I'm actually at a friend's party.
Oh.
That I.
Oh, sorry, Mark.
No, not at all.
Tell me.
That's no problem.
Tell people how they can get involved with the 900,000.
Well, at the moment, there we go. I think I just
Make yourself.
I think I just needed to move around a bit more.
Do you live in Kilkenny?
No,
I don't. Unfortunately, I don't. So yeah, like at the moment, it's just literally a sign up. So you can go to the website weare900,000.ie. You can sign up to your enter your email address there, and as I build the platform, I will be emailing people to let people know like of the next stages of the project. So at the moment, yeah, it's just a sign up screen, but like the second phase of the project, I'm going to do an interactive constituency map and populate it with all the TDs of particular constituencies where people can actually look up their voting records on issues around renting and their policies going forward into further general elections, what their policies will be on renting. So people can make an informed choice around this issue, because I think, there's a lot of issues going on around at the moment, but like if you can't find somewhere to live, you're not going to be able to work, you're not going to have good quality of life. And it feeds into huge problems within the economy, socially, economically. It's just like finding a nice place for people to live is a no-brainer, So I just think for me, my skills, I'm a designer, I'm a web designer. So this is you know, up my alley. So I just thought I'd do this project out of, you know, kind of just been sick of it now, really, to be honest.
Well, it's fantastic.
You know?
So it's we are 900,000.ie.
Yeah.
We are, and then the numbers.
900,000, yeah, .ie. It's a bit, that's actually a bit confusing, but.
No, can I congratulate you on
Yeah,
it?
well done, Mark. Great
Because
idea.
I when you were sort of in the upside down there for a second, I was just saying that I'm surprised an organisation like this hasn't come together, or a movement before now, because at one point we are all going to rent. We are all going to need. We're all going to be in rental accommodation at some stage in our lives.
Yeah.
I came up through the whole bedsit, Rathmines.
Yeah.
You know, Ranelagh.
Yeah, still have your Leonard Cohen CDs, Vanessa.
It sounds circular around. Bedsit after bedsit.
I just want to let Mark, Mark, can you go back to the party? Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah.
No problem. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Thanks, Mark.
Well done, Mark.
Have a great evening.
You have
Talk again. So far.
Have a fantastic
yeah.
So, and also, there's a post on the site that was on yesterday's.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
If you go
you can have a look.
On the site, if anybody's on Broadsheet.
Yeah, thanks so much for posting that.
You might come back, Mark.
Oh, anytime. I'll be more prepared next time, I promise. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Mark.
Bye, Mark. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mark. I noticed the Times Ireland edition has come in now.
Yeah, it's up. I've added it there. So we have the Times and we have the Examiner.
Okay. Do you want to go?
Do you want to have a look at them?
The covers of both.
Just give me a sec. So I know it's always takes some time.
Johnny.
It's a great idea, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like, remember that film with the 300, was it?
300, yeah.
So I like, you know, if people who are renting and as to do sign up to the websites, you know, you're actually building a movement there of renters. And that would be a poll that I'd be interested in.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't have, it'd be unbiased, I'd say, for a start.
Can I say as well, John? I remember. I think when was this? I think it was like October a year ago. There was a guy had a thing on Broadsheet. Mick Byrne was his name. He seems to be doing some very good stuff. It was through Rory Hearn. He had an article he had written about the rental sector, and he was pulling people together as well. I think that's another sort of thing worth looking out. You know.
Yeah, actually, you're right. I must get Rory.
He was great. He wrote a couple of pieces, didn't he? Yeah.
Mark.
But do you remember Daft.ie? Like, I remember Harrods Cross and Rathmines and Ranelagh as well, Vanessa, and you'd be going looking at our beds. This is the mid-1990s, and Phibsborough as well. So the market was completely all over the place, and you'd be waiting for the Evening Herald to get the listings. And Daft.ie blew all that out of the water, and I thought that they were coming in. And they're still doing good stuff, but it's not up to scratch in relation to how they started out, because they definitely made a difference in relation to renting, but it didn't feature pan out as good as they said it would have liked.
The internet changed a lot of business. The internet changed a lot of how businesses advertise. So, you know, landlords were no different. The one thing though that's changed sort of since the mid-90s on was the queues were always used to form at the end of August. You know, if you were ever looking to change your flat, you started looking in in May, June, and you got your pick of places. And there was no bother looking. You could look at 3 or 4 flats in a night, and the landlord would be bringing, nearly begging you, will you take it? Take it.
Well, it's fantastic. Sorry, Olga, you were going to.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, sorry. Can you see me? Or can you see the papers rather?
Papers is great.
Yeah. So here's the Times Ireland edition. So the story at the top there by Jennifer O'Brien. Today FM under pressure over group complaint against Porter. Today FM has refused to say what action it took when a complaint was made about the comedian Al Porter's behaviour towards a musician in one of its studios earlier this year. The complaint is understood to relate to a band who were recording a song when they met Porter, who allegedly groped the musician at the station's Dublin offices before sending a series of messages on social media. Times have basically asked Today FM what did they do, and they can't. They're we can't. What the quote is, cannot comment on specific injuries relation to individual employees or contractor details. So I think that the Times already wrote. I think Jennifer, this reporter, wrote about this at the weekend, I think. So so obviously they're still trying to figure out what exactly they did. So then the lead story then, sack Fitzgerald or will bring down the coalition by Niamh Lyons. So government on brink after Fianna Fáil's ultimatum to Varadkar. Oh, sorry, John, can you see?
No, we can't see the paper.
No.
Oh, you're not, oh really?
See it all.
We're seeing your logo.
Oh, sorry. I don't know what's happening there.
That's,
okay, let me...
Is that the Dingle Peninsula?
No, that thing, sack Fitzgerald, we bring down
no,
the coalition.
That's Ballycotton. Sorry.
Ballycotton, lovely.
Sorry.
We'll sack Fitzgerald, we'll bring down the coalition. Micheál Martin is no more going to walk out of Leinster House looking for an election than I am. Do you know? I just think that's Jim O'Callaghan now, but I can't see them pushing this yet until the new year. They'll just do a bit of a reshuffle.
It shouldn't be up to them.
But I'd love to know where the independents are. Man, should we ring someone?
No. Would it be possible to see the covers?
Yeah, can you see them? I have it up now. No, is it not working?
No, we're getting Ballycotton again, Olga.
Sorry, it's showing on my screen. Okay, it's showing on my screen that you're seeing it, but you're not, obviously.
No.
No, there's no.
I'm really sorry. I don't know why that's not working. That's really unusual.
Well, the cover of the Times Ireland edition is very stark. Sack Fitzgerald in the coalition. That's as Vanessa said there. That's Jim O'Callaghan.
It's almost like he's rabble rousing, showing off. For his own party and for nobody else, really. I think he's just trying to make himself relevant, because to be fair, Micheál Martin's been very irrelevant in the last 3-4 months.
Yeah, but this is a very big issue, Vanessa. I mean, it's not. I don't think they're literally just playing around here. I do think that there's a lot of emotional.
Yes, but who was the star in Leinster House on the issue today?
Mary Lou.
Yeah, and who's been the star besides Mary Lou, principally outside Dublin, in the last 2 weeks on this issue? Alan Kelly.
Yeah.
John McGuinness. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
So John McGuinness went off and tried to have a meeting in the Central Bank with Jonathan Sugarman, and they wouldn't let Sugarman in.
Really?
No.
Wow.
So listen, John McGuinness shouts and roars. I think John McGuinness is like the Davy Fitz of politics. He's great at shouting and roaring. But, you know, when you're looking for actually.
They're up there, Olga.
Okay, were they showing? Oh,
yeah, they were.
Okay, let me try that again. I was going to hang up and maybe call back in and see if that would work. Okay, crap, I just closed it. Sorry. Okay.
Well, look, it does seem to me like there will be an election now. I can't see anybody backing down of this. If Leo and the party standing ovation.
Standing by her, yeah.
And
do you know what else, though, guys?
Yeah, Brexit negotiations in North will suffer.
It would suit them to have an election now, so it takes the focus away from the Sinn Féin leadership election. Because if you look at the last leadership election we had was Leo and Simon, and Jesus Christ, it was.
You've just changed your mind now, like in 3 minutes.
No, I'm discussing. I'm not changing. I'm discussing.
She's putting strategy or.
I mean, if they're strategic
alternatives,
if they're really being smarty pants about it, that's what they would do. And as I said earlier at the top of the show, John, nobody knocks on doors anymore.
Thanks, John.
That's not Vanessa. Gary Gannon, Anne-Marie McNally, they are knocking all the doors down. I mean, a lot of that going on in the Soc Dems and Labour, of course, they're big canvassers still, aren't they?
Well, I can tell you no Soc Dem knocked on my door in the last election.
You might have been out.
No, there's right still no. There was there was someone at your door. They're thinking they're clients, like, you know.
Luke, help me out here.
Well, I think the point Johnny made earlier about Sinn Féin is a good one. You know, that I think they are, you know, it mightn't be this election, but I mean, I just think they're the force to be reckoned with. They're the future force. You know, people talk about the youth, but also, you know, they have a sort of like a clear determination, you know, that's above and beyond the general sort of, you know, desire to, you know, get the kudos and power and whatever else, you know, like they're, you know, the soldiers of destiny. And you know, I think you see that there's generations of people very committed to changing Ireland, and that'll happen.
Yeah, and look, on that, very good people from Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael did jump to Sinn Féin.
But that discipline backfires, Luke, with, I mean, the bullying allegations, I think, has damaged them. There's too many of them. There's,
right.
You know, and I'm sure there's more to it in a number of cases, but there's an accumulation of bullying cases against the party.
Yeah.
Mary Lou will have some difficulty getting around that, I feel. Yeah. Sorry, I'll get just while the paper's over there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So is it working now? It is. Yeah. Oh yeah. So basically, sack Fitzgerald or we'll bring down the coalition. Leave lines. So Fianna Fáil has told Varadkar to sacrifice the Taoiseach or face a general election. So we kind of know this, and then. Jim O'Callaghan, Fianna Fáil's justice spokesman, threw down the gauntlet saying that his party could not support her. He revealed that his party was considering putting down his own motion on the matter. We said that. The move would rip up the government or the agreement underpinning the minority coalition and would impede the government from conducting any further business. Last night, rumours were circulating that Fine Gael was preparing for a mid-January election. They also have a line about the Independent Alliance. So it is understood that the Independent Alliance has not changed its position on the matter and continues to have confidence in Ms Fitzgerald. Dennis Naughton and Catherine Zappone, the other independents, and you'll have to wait till tomorrow to see page 2. So I don't know what's that. The Irish Exam. This is the Irish Examiner, which is a great front page. So obviously that's Morris in the front, Charlie Flanagan on the left, Vance Fitzgerald, Callan, Marina Sullivan, Brian Purcell. Yeah, and
Charlie Flanagan. See what time we mentioned him this evening? That's how relevant he is, lads. It's the first time we got a mention.
Charlie Flanagan. Well, Charlie Flanagan. Charlie Flanagan
has questions. We mentioned him all evening, isn't it?
He was down Mount Medic.
No. Well, we mentioned briefly at the start because Charlie Flanagan. My understanding is that the email was found on the 9th of November. Charlie Flanagan was told about it on the 13th of November, and that's the same day that Noel Waters, the Secretary General, told him that he was going to be resigning. Leo went on. So sorry, just to say that again. Email was found on the 9th. Flanagan was told on the 13th. Leo went out on the 14th, said there's nothing, and said no, there's nothing. And I think that's the day that the Secretary General was resigning, became public. But also Flanagan was sitting next to him on the 14th, and then on the 15th, if you remember, Flanagan stood up in the Dáil and accused Alan Kelly of launching or kind of engaging in some sort of smear campaign against him. So at that stage, obviously, probably what was happening was that Kelly was kind of knew about this email and knew that Flanagan knew and was, I don't know, maybe that's what it was, I don't know. And then it wasn't until the 16th that Fitzgerald was told, that Francis Fitzgerald was told about it, and it wasn't until the 20th that Leo was told about it. So Charlie Flanagan does have questions to answer because he was the first to be told about it, it would seem, on the 13th, and Leo wasn't told until the 20th.
That's why.
And Fitzgerald wasn't told until the 16th. Sorry, John.
That's why he was freaking out last week about being stalked by Kelly.
Yeah.
And Varadkar being overlooked there twice by two of his deputies. Not a good sign of a leader, is it?
It's a fair question.
The information didn't get through to him.
Yeah.
Varadkar didn't get the information, but sorry, I'll go on.
Yeah, but last week the week before, I said something about, I get the impression Leo stays aloof from all the cabinet stuff, and I don't think he's bothered with it at all. I think he finds it all a bit of a nuisance. I just think he'd rather be out there shaking hands and posing and
shaking babies, kissing hands,
showing off his socks and stuff. I think he finds it all a bit of a distraction from himself, not from anything more important, just from himself.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll get you.
Just to say that on the bottom of that, on the bottom of that page 1 of the Examiner, there's a story there by Conal O'Ferta who we've mentioned before in relation to the, the Magdalen laundry. And so it's basically, read it before, but Magdalen laundry survivors have suffered a clear injustice by being wrongly denied access to compensation, according to the Ombudsman. So basically, it's a report by the Ombudsman, Peter Tyndall, and he has published this scathing assessment of the Department of Justice administration of this scheme, the redress scheme for the Magdalen laundries, the women who went to the Magdalen laundries. So basically, the department had refused several women access to redress, claiming they were not resident in one of the 12 institutions covered by the scheme. But the Ombudsman was provided with evidence that some of the laundries were either physically linked to the units or where the women lived or were located on the same grounds as the Magdalen laundries. So we'll hear more about that tomorrow. So, but it would seem that the department just ignored the redress evidence, which isn't really surprising given the fact that we know about given what we know in relation to the. So, does that make sense? Yeah. So for example, he's got examples. St. Joseph's Reformatory School. It was subsequently known as the Rosemount Training Centre. It's in Limerick. A woman was refused access to the compensation scheme on the basis that she resided at St. Joseph's Reformatory School, despite her having provided testimony to the scheme that she had worked in the laundry. The department consulted records from the Department of Education and relevant court orders, and also contacted the Good Shepherd sisters, who verified that the woman had been a resident at St. Joseph's. However, following a request for review by the woman, the department contacted the congregation again, and at this point the congregation indicated that the woman may have spent some time each day working in the laundry. The Ombudsman found that despite this admission and its knowledge of the close relationship between the various units on the campus, it upheld the decision to refuse her access to the scheme on the basis that there was no evidence that she had been admitted to St. Mary's. The department did not appear to have inquiries about the interaction between the school and St. Mary's, or indeed why the woman worked in the laundry at all.
Yeah, well, again, it goes back to Enda Kenny, who gave that speech in the Dáil and then appointed Martin McAleese to do the report on the Magdalens. And I mean, to say it was a whitewash is an insult to whitewashers.
he literally just typed up what the nuns told him to say, or the religious told him to say. He was a typist. That's what he did.
They're doing what they can to.
He's better dentist than he is.
Your buddy John.
He was an accountant and then a dentist. Do you know? It does also.
It's pretty shabby, and then you've got Mary McAleese going on about the compensation, saying that they should get the money. It's almost like.
I think it's been established, John, that these institutions, homes for this, care of this, I think it's pretty well established they were awful places. I don't even know why there's a discussion on you have to qualify for redress if you were at any stage in these places.
Yeah, but when you have the redress,
it also goes back to, if that was a Fianna Fáil thing, it was Michael Woods. I think I'm to call him Dr. Michael Woods, actually, aren't I? That put the cap on the liability for the religious.
Yeah, Vanessa, it's very interesting you should say that, because I really believe that that'll be a strong point against Fianna Fáil in this upcoming election, because I think that the deal, which was very, very questionable, that I understand Michael Fingleton was involved. Fingleton.
The glamour.
The bang of Opus Dei around this indemnity deal. And
it's definitely influenced. Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions are at stake.
Yeah, and they don't want to let it go, John, if they can avoid it at all. So they're ringing in your buddy Joe Duffy a lot about it. But if they're going to talk about redress, how about a date when all this, when everyone that needs compensation gets compensation by, say, 2019? That might make people actually work to a deadline. And that's something in the public sector that they might take lead from. Deadlines, work, stuff like that,
It's extraordinary.
Is to delay till people are dead.
Yeah, that's what they're at.
That's exactly it. And some of them have died, in fact.
The damages are less if they're dead. Do you know what I mean? But come here, do you not think, well, the level of compensation like per head of population, not the value, but the number of claims. Like we've all the tracker mortgages, you know, being compensated for. Okay, you have the civil actions, but you know, the accidents and stuff. But now there's all these families, or these girls and boys, you know, being rightfully compensated for the torture they went through. And I wonder, is there a way of measuring per head the different compensation schemes going in this country? You know, is there like a benchmark worldwide? Because there's also the you know, Neary, the guy, and the was this what was the
doctor?
Yeah, all these other the blood scandal they were getting Hep B, and
I think the thalidomide in Ireland is that we can't.
Sorry.
The difficulty in Ireland is that we can't take class action suits against.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's probably that explains that. So, sorry, Jack.
Actually, yeah. And wasn't there a Sinn Féin motion last week about that? Did that pass? Actually, no. It did pass, did it, John? No, it didn't.
No, but it was. Okay. It's something that they want to introduce. I mean, it's something that we need to introduce. I don't know why.
Well, I think it was on the back of the mortgage, the tracker mortgage, right? That it was motion, but it didn't pass. I meant to listen. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. No. Are there any other tomorrow's papers there?
Okay, 2 seconds. Sorry.
Clampers, I think one of the people on Broadsheet has just put up a tweet that former Unionist MP and current Lord's peer called Irish Taoiseach Leo Varadkar the Indian.
Yeah, I actually retweeted. It's John Taylor.
Did you? Yeah. I'll get it on my phone. It's easier to get Twitter on my phone.
The Indian, huh?
Yeah, and actually, we retweeted that, and then he said something sort of he meant it as a compliment or something.
Well, he's half Indian, like, you know. He could have been worse. Could have been called Desha. What he meant, you know, that's just black humor. Sorry.
No, I'm telling you. Listen, Leo, he's after pissing off all the right people for me these days.
Oh, may I share something else? It's
sorry, I'll go.
It's a statement that Daniel McConnell from the Examiner has tweeted, and it's from the Fine Gael party chairman. Just 2 seconds. Let me see if I can do this quickly.
It's not the guy Barry Walsh from last week, is it?
No. I could fall. Martin Hayden. So this is yes.
Kildare South.
Oh yeah.
So this is his Fine Gael Parliamentary Party. Can you see that? Yeah. Sorry, just check. So the Fine Gael Parliamentary Party unanimously passed a motion tonight to stand firmly behind Taoiseach Francis Fitzgerald. At a meeting in Leinster House tonight, the party heard from leader Leo Varadkar, who said their colleague Minister Francis Fitzgerald was facing a trumped-up charge from the opposition. The meeting agreed Fine Gael does not want a general election. The government has a lot of work ahead on which it needs to focus. Several bills have yet to pass through the Oireachtas, including the Finance Bill, the FEMPI Bill and the Social Welfare Bill. There is a major Brexit summit scheduled for next month. Brexit is one of the biggest challenges facing the country in decades, and Fine Gael is firmly focused on this process. Martin Hayden said after the meeting, "What we have seen from both Sinn Féin and Fianna Fáil today is a political stunt, pure and simple. We will not allow the opposition bully us. Sinn Féin is attempting to undermine the work of the Charlton Tribunal, which was set up by the Fine Gael-led government to investigate the treatment of Maurice McCabe and get to the bottom of whether or not there was a campaign against him, the same Charlton Tribunal that the opposition agreed to in the first place. History shows that Fine Gael adheres to due process and has respect for natural justice. Fine Gael stands fully Taoiseach and Minister for Enterprise and Innovation, Francis Fitzgerald." Deputy Hayden said. What's that?
Well,
but is that an official Fine Gael?
I think that.
Yeah, he's the chairman of the party, so that's
right. That's the official press release. Oh yeah.
That came in.
Yeah.
That came in before the Jim McCallum.
Do you know?
No, yeah, that's important.
Well, no, I am basically that I just got that from a tweet from Daniel McConnell. So when exactly he sent that out, I don't know.
That was 21 minutes ago. So that's from the parliamentary meeting. that was in relation to the Sinn Féin motion, but if no, they don't seem to.
Oh, no, yeah, I think this is after. So Fine Gael had a party meeting a parliamentary party meeting at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, but they
yeah,
no reference to before there.
So that's after O'Callaghan. The Times said, was it O'Callaghan said that if they don't sack Fitzgerald, Fianna Fáil are going to bring down the government. Yeah. Is that not? Am I missing something?
Well, that's there's no reference to that in that statement, is there?
There's no reference to Fianna Fáil's motion of no confidence.
No.
They've said that Fianna Fáil is.
You don't sack her.
Yeah, Sinn Féin and Fianna Fáil are it's political stunt, but you're right. It's not referencing the motion of no confidence. No.
So therefore, Fianna Fáil have to be true to their word, lads. Imagine Fianna Fáil being true to their word that they are going to take down the government. So let's see how they take it down then.
I'll see if I can find any.
Luke, this is very exciting, isn't it?
I can't see Fianna Fáil doing much of anything because they still have a number of constituencies where they haven't run their conventions.
No, but you see what the way they have reneged on anything in the Dáil, it's in the last year. So now they're basically saying if they don't sack Fitzgerald, they're going to take down the government. So they're going to vote for a motion of no confidence. So then that'll lead to an election, no?
Johnny, if you look at the newspapers there, they got the front page. But Mary Lou didn't, and she made shit of them all in Leinster House today. So this is their way. This is their way of challenging.
Yeah.
Actually, do you know what?
Is there more sinners or Fianna Fáil in the media?
Broadsheet hosted Derek Mooney's piece the other day, and it was extremely sexist.
Sorry?
He had no time for Mary Lou or for, I think he called Michelle O'Neill a puppet.
But what's sexist about that, Vanessa?
No, but it was very, there was a tone in it that was, not very nice.
Well,
he was definitely singling out Mary Lou.
Well, I didn't think in a particularly sexist way. He said that I thought it was quite a good line. He said that the nearest she'd come to sort of the whiff of sulphur was the Bang Bang chicken in Castleknock.
I don't think that's funny, lads.
Have you had sulphur chicken before?
I don't know what the Bang Bang chicken is like in Castleknock, or in Wong's in Castleknock. But
Well, I think it's a bit rich, really, because I mean, Mooney would have worked for Frank Dunlop at some point.
Frank Dunlop.
If he was
that's the ways of the world.
That's the ways of the world.
So he's the
last one to be pointing the finger about dodgy connections.
Well, I think it was he was suggesting that the attraction of Sinn Féin, part of the attraction is this sort of, military past and military present, perhaps.
But sure, Fianna Fáil has a military past, so is Fine Gael.
Well, I think the whiff of sulphur is a little bit stronger, with Sinn Féin are a little bit more recent. And I think what Derek was trying to say was that it's really hard to sort of throw what you threw at Adams at Mary Malou, because the nearest she's been to Bang Bang has been in Wong's in Castleknock. That was his point. I think it's a pretty good point.
They use this all the time.
As a vegetarian, I'm offended.
Well, I think Owen Harris, Eilish O'Hanlon, the Conor Cruise O'Brien position on Sinn Féin is still prevalent.
Yeah, but let's not get embroiled in this mainstream media conversation about the three main parties now.
Just finish the point. It becomes less and less so. It becomes less of a thing to kind of stick to beat them with. If you've got Mary Lou, Michelle O'Neill, and Adams and people like that are gone, it makes it more difficult, no?
Yeah, but why use the word cordite and sulphur, John, when she's proving that she's actually capable? It doesn't, why would they say that?
Well, he was saying that the party, part of its attraction is this, balaclava element to it.
Well, okay, there was a Fianna Fáil councillor a few months back sending dirty pictures over the internet and got blackmailed. So can we all say they're all like that in Fianna Fáil? No, we don't.
I'm not agreeing with any position here, Vanessa. I'm simply saying that I think that's how Sinn Féin are viewed, particularly with Adams at the head. When you've got Mary Lou at the head of it, it becomes less and less relevant, really, to bring up.
I think it's an easy way for the main parties to challenge them by introducing that type of worn out rhetoric of gunpowder and
yeah, there's no imagination, Vanessa.
You know, listen, I think Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin would be a good government, okay? But can you imagine the Fianna Fáil heads on one side of the table and the Sinn Féin on the other side of the table? And Jesus, Fianna Fáil they wouldn't be able to keep up with the pace of them at all. But seriously.
Yeah.
But how can that? Because that is a realization. Well, how can that actually work? Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil is a better chance of working than Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin. And Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil just can't work.
But you see, I don't think you have the skills in Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael. Well, some of them, you know. Yeah. So there's some candidates on both sides that are good, and you can work with them. But I mean, if you're looking at one front bench, if you're looking at Fianna Fáil front bench, a Sinn Féin front bench, and the Fine Gael front bench, I know who I'd rather work with in the morning. You know, I want to work with the smart people.
All good.
Yeah.
Is there any latest on Twitter?
So no, just that statement I read out. Actually, Fine Gael released that about 40 minutes ago on Twitter. So yeah, so that came after Fianna Fáil said that they might put down their own motion of no confidence.
Okay, there's been no response in relation to that from Fine Gael.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be anything. They just seem to be saying that, look, this is tribunal, and I know that on primetime, Owen Murphy was on with Mary Lou MacDonald, actually, so there was nobody there from Fianna Fáil, but at least I don't think so. I beg your pardon, there was someone from Fianna Fáil there, but I didn't get to hear it. Sorry. So I don't know what.
Say something there.
Well, no, I was just going to say that with this situation, I mean, is it the case that it's not really about anything? What's being discussed isn't, it's not about Fitzgerald. It's really about whether Fine Gael or Fianna Fáil want an election. And I mean, my sort of rough guess at that is that they don't really want or need one.
Yeah. And yet, to me, it just seems inevitable now, really, it does.
But could this be a smokescreen, John?
For which?
Well, exactly. So, basically, it's all bravado now. The chests are out with the boys. No, pigeon chests. They're like, we're not going to accept Fianna Fáil's a go at us, so we're going to fight back. But this could be something that might materialise, knowing the form of Fianna Fáil, talking an awful lot of shit, but when it comes to the crunch, they back their boys in Fine Gael. So, then Sinn Féin are obviously bringing the motion of no confidence for next Wednesday. Is that right?
Yeah, Wednesday, yeah.
Okay. So in that meantime, Fianna Fáil have loads of time to backtrack, and then just nothing happens. A big hoo-ha about something. And then there's a big story that we're missing out on because this is a sideshow. They've done it before. So, I don't trust them whatsoever about anything. So I'm not surprised with these people. But I'd love an election in the morning. I'd love it.
We'll know next Wednesday because Fine Gael will need Fianna Fáil to support them in the vote.
Exactly.
I think we're beyond that now, Vanessa. The language this evening. Do you feel that now? Luke? I'd
wait till the Saturday morning shows and Sunday morning shows with Marion and see what happens.
We'll definitely hear from Marion. Yeah.
I know. I think Johnny's point is good. That it does possibly seem like a bit of a distraction, and even a distraction from what's happened. The reality of what's happening with McCabe.
Absolutely, I agree with you on that, Luke. I mean, again, it goes back to the point that the business of the email, he says, you know, it's not like,
and it goes back to what,
how many layers?
Sorry,
of, how many layers of?
I don't think they.
But Enda Kenny walked as well in the midst of controversy to take the lights off, and it was McCabe again, wasn't it?
Well,
yeah.
So, it was the meeting of Catherine Sapone. Catherine Sapone's position in this is very.
Yeah, actually, yeah, because you know I haven't been, because the last day I've been off the grid, but yeah, has she said anything? Has she?
Well, she's they're holding the line at the Independent.
Yeah. True. Sorry. Yes.
I think we need to send a search party. I think we need to make a phone call, because I haven't seen sight nor sound of him in weeks.
Shane Ross or
any of them. But the last person we've heard from is our friend down there in Waterford, for being worrying about
North Korea.
So, oh, that's where they are. That's it, Johnny. That's where they are. Yeah.
I think all the politicians, every politician who's ever spoken to Maurice McCabe, should really. It's all going to come out. I mean, and their positions, now, like their positions and how they responded to this will be remembered, I think. And it'll be laid out when it all does come out.
I think in terms of Fianna Fáil and Neil Martin, John McGuinness, they can probably say that they did their best for Maurice McCabe.
Yeah.
I mean, Fine Gael can't say that. Fine Gael tonight has said that we're not letting Francis Fitzgerald be fed to the wolves. They allowed Maurice McCabe to just be fed to the wolves.
Yeah.
They let. I mean, think about this, right? You're one guard taking on the guards, and you're being double crossed by the government. It's pretty heavy stuff, isn't it?
But what a hero he's coming out to be, McCabe. Yeah. I said it before, but it wasn't kind of taken seriously. But is there a finer Garda to be commissioner than McCabe?
Do you know?
And if there isn't, he should be the prime example of what Garda should be. Do you know?
Yeah, well, he is. I mean, also have to.
Of course, he is.
Heads up to Dave Taylor, who's under a lot of pressure, and who's allowed his. He was a contact for a lot of the journalists, and he's given them permission to say that he was the source of the information. But they haven't taken that opportunity. A number of journalists, and in fact, we talk about Katie Hannon and Michael Clifford. They're brilliant. They've done brilliant work on the Maurice McCabe stuff, but really the mainstream press and Maurice McCabe's story has to be told that they're, they were complicit, a lot of them in a way. Whereas you've got, say, Primetime doing good work on Maurice McCabe, you've got RT News not doing bizarre work on Maurice McCabe.
Well, there's the thing, John. Everyone can buy his book for Christmas.
Yeah.
As a nod of respect to Garda McCabe.
I'm going to buy Marcel's book.
We still have. Marcel's book. Sorry, I have to give it a big.
Can I just say something about Maurice McCabe? There is. I've actually forgotten he's a guard. I'm just totally blown away by his absolute strength of character. I don't know anyone that would have put up with even a year of that, and he's put up with it for so long. And his family and the abuse, and to still have the herewithal to go in and record these thickers.
Yeah.
We're trying to.
Imagine if he hadn't.
Absolutely.
I know. And do you know what? What about all the people that didn't record? What, like, who didn't have a mobile phone this size 20, 30 years ago that could have recorded something?
And,
look at. I don't want to start a whole new tribunal now.
But also, I think. Sorry to interrupt. And sorry, John. I know you want to keep saying, but also it throws up a question about commissions of investigation, though, because the question has to be asked. Commissions of investigation, I think they were set up in 2004 by Michael McDowell, funnily enough, I think. So, they're held in private. All we have is the report. you know. So what about the others? There's one in Namanee, there's one in Side Surf, there's one into, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, John.
No, I was going to go to Johnny. Was going to say something there, Johnny.
Sorry, John.
No, I think I interrupted you, John. So I said enough. I said too much, maybe.
Maybe said too much. Again, you've said too much.
Never.
Just want to thank everybody tonight. So it looks like we're going to have an election, and what we're going to try and do with Broadsheet on the Telly is have it more frequent coming up to the election, maybe Monday to Thursday night.
Get a candidate.
Yeah, get a candidate a night and grill him or her, and
sulfurize them.
Yeah.
No, see, I have a friend looking to get past convention, so I need to be careful in case I say something and some of the old fellas that carry the votes, you know, put a spanner in. So,
can I just ask a question? If there is an election, how long do you have to be? Because I know there's a few people on the verge of getting into politics. So how long does it take to get into politics if an election is called for mid-January?
No, you just put in your form into the whoever the returning officer is. It's usually the county sheriff. Yeah.
How long did it take Mick Wallace? Wasn't it like, what was it? How many days?
A couple of weeks. Okay. As long as you're registered, you're an Irish citizen or whatever, and you're registered, and just go in and pay your deposit with I think it's probably the local court office.
Johnny, will you stand in Kilkenny for us, for the Broadsheet party?
Yeah. If Broadsheet has a party, I will definitely sacrifice my
But you would keep missing the parties. That's the problem.
Now listen, the party hasn't been organised until I organise the party. Speaking of which, where are we having the Christmas one? I'm looking forward to meeting Roe Tide and having a chat with Clampers and actually they're all up there. And can I apologise to all the fan, my fan last week? Literally let down the fanfare. So it was very annoying. I didn't realise how annoying it was. And fair play to you, chairman. You had the right to have a go at me. I didn't realise how bad it was until I listened back. So I apologise for really messing up the programme last week. It was very irritating, and it won't happen again. So it was very bad on my behalf. But I didn't know how bad it was until I heard back. So I apologise.
But no, thank you, John. Yeah. And what we're going to do, Luke, I think I've decided, is going to produce this show.
Hey!
Hope it pays well, John. Hope it pays well.
Oh, yeah, great, very good team. So we're going to move on to this better platform, and that is basically what this is. It's just a platform for people, for alternative voices, a different take on the day's events, and a little bit of swearing. Very sorry for the blue language earlier. I'll tell the word with Vanessa later.
Did I say something bold?
Well, I did hear the S word, but
it wasn't me.
Sorry, S is in the SH1T word.
So if we get onto we'll get onto a better platform, and we'll just keep this thing going. And
yeah,
we really should get voices on it. If you'd like to come on
but Luke now will end up sacking all of us.
Please. If you can just
that's your last warning, Vanessa.
Right, broadsheet.ie. Okay, I just like to say thank you to everybody on the panel tonight. Mark Dempsey, who isn't with us, and he's on weare900,000.ie. I want to say goodbye to Johnny Keenan in Kilkenny, Luke Brennan in Dunleary, Olga Cronin in Dublin City Centre, and Vanessa Ford.
Cork, actually, but yeah.
You're in Cork, sorry. To wish best wishes to Olga's father, who's poorly at the moment this week, and
thanks, John.
My own ma, who's the same, and anybody else's mothers or relatives who are unwell. We hopefully will see you on the site tomorrow, or here next Thursday night. Okay, thank you so much. Good night.